The Takeover. No one's talking about. What if I told you that It Ends With Us was never meant to be Justin Baldoni's movie? That before the cameras even started rolling, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds had already set their plan in motion? And that this isn't the first time they've played the Hollywood power game? This isn't just speculation, it's a step-by-step masterclass in how to hijack a film. And by the time you finish this video, you'll see exactly how they pulled it off. Let's break it down. Blake Lively didn't just walk into this project as an actress. She positioned herself for control right from the start. While Justin Baldoni had been working for years to adapt Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, Blake entered at the perfect moment, after the groundwork had been laid and the investors had signed on. And here's the first power move. She agreed to a lower salary, just $3 million. That might sound like a lot, but for someone of her star power, it was well below market rate. But she wasn't doing it for the paycheck. Instead, she negotiated an executive producer credit, which seemed honorary at first, but was the first step in taking control of the film. If this sounds familiar, that's because Ryan Reynolds did the exact same thing with Deadpool. He took a pay cut, gained creative influence, and turned the sequel into a $785 million blockbuster while securing a massive back-end deal. Blake was following his blueprint to a T. Now, this is where things get interesting. Blake didn't make any major moves right away. She waited until half the film's $25 million budget had already been spent, and then she started making demands. One of her first power plays? The wardrobe. Despite months of planning and carefully chosen costumes, Blake rejected the wardrobe, demanding an entirely new set of outfits. The team had already spent time and money selecting and fitting her looks, but Blake wanted them changed to fit her personal vision. Even worse, she insisted that the entire collection be delivered to her home for fittings, adding unnecessary costs and creating friction behind the scenes. For a self-funded production, this was a nightmare. Justin Baldoni's studio, Wayfarer, was running on tight finances, and Blake was bleeding the budget dry. So why didn't Justin just say no? Simple, he couldn't afford to lose her. With half the budget already gone and Blake as the film's biggest star, pulling the plug on her would mean losing everything. Once Blake had the financial upper hand, it was time for the next phase of the takeover. Ryan Reynolds, who has a reputation for rewriting scripts and pushing his creative influence, stepped in to help Blake adjust the screenplay. At first, the changes seemed small, some dialogue tweaks here and there, but soon entire scenes were being reworked without the director's input. Then came the biggest manipulation of all. Blake invited Justin Baldoni to her home to discuss ideas for the film. But when he arrived, he found himself in a room with Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift, who were hyping up Blake's changes. Put yourself in Justin's shoes. He's alone, facing three of Hollywood's most powerful figures, all telling him that Blake's changes are for the best. What do you do? Justin tried to stand his ground, but Blake wasn't done. Later that night, she sent him a late-night text expressing disappointment, making him feel guilty for pushing back. In the end, she got exactly what she wanted. Then, Hollywood was hit with the actors and writers' strikes. Production was put on hold. For most filmmakers, this would be a major setback. For Blake, it was an opportunity. During the production pause, she renegotiated her contract, demanding more creative input, oversight, and decision-making power. With the movie stalled, Justin had no leverage. He had already spent too much money, and Sony was pressuring him to keep Blake happy. This wasn't just about one film anymore. Blake was positioning herself as a serious producer, just like Ryan. When production finally wrapped, Justin assumed the hardest part was over. He was wrong. Blake wasn't done yet. She demanded access to the editing process, a privilege usually reserved for the director. She was granted 2 days in the editing bay, which somehow turned into 10. And she wasn't alone. Ryan Reynolds joined her. Together, they overhauled the film, replacing editors, rewriting key moments, and reshaping the final cut. Even Taylor Swift allegedly had a say. The original composer was fired, reportedly due to issues with her, and replaced with someone from Ryan's Deadpool team. By the time Justin saw what had happened, his version of the film was competing with Blake's, and when test audiences preferred his version over hers, Blake had one last card to play. Blake's last move was the most ruthless. She reportedly threatened not to promote the film unless her version was used. For a movie of this scale, losing the lead actress's promotional support would be catastrophic. Justin had no choice. He had to comply. This wasn't just about It Ends With Us. This was Blake and Ryan's first step toward owning an entire franchise. Colleen Hoover recently launched Heartbones Entertainment, a production company that could pave the way for future adaptations of her books. And guess who's in prime position to take over those projects? Blake Lively. Blake once referred to herself as Khaleesi, a reference to Daenerys Targaryen. And just like Daenerys, she played the long game, built her influence, and seized power. But the real question is, did she go too far? What do you think? Was this a smart Hollywood power move? Or did she cross the line? Let us know in the comments. And if you think this was wild, just wait till you hear what's next.